We move on to our second section, which is about culture. This will be really interesting because in many ways this is much more intangible than the capabilities section that we've just talked about. Again, 3 areas. The first area and the area that rated most important by the buyers completing the survey was service culture. But also, and quite surprising to me, it was the area that seemed to have the most gap, with about 28% variance between the importance placed on service culture within the TMC and the reality of delivery.
I find that really hard to believe, actually. The experience that I see personally with our TMC is of absolute service delivery. Even if service level agreements aren't being delivered to, once you speak to a person, there is no issue whatsoever with the service of what that individual's delivering.
What does service mean? I think it means different things to different people. So I'm sort of with Karen. I think, you know, for a lot of us who've been in the industry a long time, we're service people through and through, and I think it's strange to think that when you do speak to someone at the end of the phone, and, you know, I think you're right, it might be coloured by the fact that you get a hold of someone and they actually can't help you because of other limitations in their supply chain. So that could have been colouring it, but maybe it does come back to perception and what does service mean to different people? Has that changed?
I know you don't want to reference it to the pandemic, but I think a very good example is the fact that all these people left the industry and they've been snapped up in other places and not come back. And I think that says a lot. And I remember that when SARS was large, a lot of people left the industry and they were being snapped up in customer centre areas, etc., because the service mentality is so strong.
One of the questions or challenges is that when you think about service culture, isn't necessarily at the point of sale we're talking here. It could be account management. And I know, for example, account management's been a hot topic of conversation in the industry for a while about could account managers be doing more to bring more value to the corporation. Do you think that might have played into this?
What are the KPIs that we're measuring? Are we reviewing them on a regular basis? Are we having back and forth dialogue? So I think that it comes back to governance a little bit here as well, but I think being clear on what service looks like is critically important in terms of the expectation.
I think KPIs are important as well. So I think back in the day, you know, average talk time, don't make any outbound calls, all of that stuff, that's not necessarily aligned to where clients need you to be, whereas that would have been, you know, a measurement of productivity and success internally. I know we've moved on from that, but are we measuring different KPIs? Are we, you know, have we moved on from that? But yeah, I completely agree. I do think service means different things to different people, and I think it means something very different post-pandemic as well.
Right, what are we not doing right? We want agents to be productive. We want them to be able to service properly and allow them that time. But what are we not doing right and not educating maybe where you have such a high contact to book ratio, maybe. So I think there's a re-education piece on our side, definitely from an SLA perspective.
And there are some lovely examples like that throughout the last couple of years, which have changed the shape of the way in which the partnership owns service as a collective. Of course, it's on the TMC to deliver it ultimately, but it is a partnership play in terms of driving service.
The account manager, business manager will mean different things for different size organisations. So for some of them, they almost act like the travel manager within an organisation, which is one element. For a more mature programme that has a travel team, the account management, business management team have a unique opportunity to bring the benchmark in. And I do actually think that there are gaps with that because it's seen so often as chargeable and as something that's revenue generating. But actually in mature programmes, you're not necessarily thinking about getting thought leadership from your account director necessarily. What you want though is that comparisons between what are other companies doing out there to bring that thought process. And I think we need to figure out how that can happen without it always coming with a price tag.
I think what we've heard across all of you is the different size clients are going to require different things. So I think the gap around expectation here is key, but I also don't think this is new. I think the account management function needing to be more strategic, needing to bring insights, needing to bring benchmarks has been out there for quite a while. So I don't know why it's still out there as an issue. I don't know whether you'd have any sense of why. I mean, I think But yet we've heard some great examples on some client relationships. It does work really well. And the QBR comes up all the time. Clients really, here we go, right? The sigh of the QBR. And I know so many now that have just cancelled them because it was always this backward-looking view.
Couldn't agree with you more. It's painful to see. It should be about forward-looking, both from a partnership perspective and also when I talk about that thought leadership and consultancy that comes to play. And this is where you look at business development and looking at ways that we can change things, looking at behaviour or the performance of the programme. I think that's important.
What I've seen work really well, and I know a lot of our clients really appreciate, is the standard QBR is your pre-read. So that we need to have a look at it. We need to understand what's gone before, but I don't want you to come and read that to me for 3 hours. I do the work that you need to do, but then when we have our QBR, 3 hours, half day, whatever it is in your environment, let's do something together, let's cooperate, and actually that builds into the governance plan in itself. So it's the use of that valuable time.
I think a client success manager is that partner. It's the absolute partner to the travel manager. And you have to be working together on the forward-looking strategy for the travel programme at large. And that is about providing insight to the client success manager on where you're going as a business. Now, are you opening new offices in new locations? Have you got M&A activity on the horizon that means there's a big cultural shift coming from a travel perspective, as well as the nitty-gritty of managing a programme? But it's very much a partnership exercise to take it from being a here's your data to let's have a really strategic discussion about the future.
For me, this is sort of one of the most interesting areas, because initially you look at that gap and go, really? Because actually, post-pandemic, there's been a tolerance of service not being what it could have been. At the same time, our industry really shone during the pandemic and post-pandemic for being so committed to service.
Being clear up front about what service delivery needs to look like at a client level, where the programme is large enough to define that up front. But for many companies that are managing travel amongst many other categories, creating, to your point earlier on, that kind of ability to access information, that information be forward-thinking, that gives you the ability to make good decisions about what you need to do next.
We've really tried, across the board, across the whole community, to move away from travel being such a commoditised thing. It's not transactional, it's incredibly emotive, it drives forward business success and the economy at large. So when we then look at how are we measuring service, to your point, we're looking at an SLA for did you answer the phone within X amount of time? Yeah. That feels archaic compared to where we should be today on what does service really mean? Where's the magic? Where's the bit that really looks like service? Because if you ask somebody, give me an experience of great service, nobody is going to say to you, that person picked up the phone within a couple of seconds, which is what my contractual expectation of them was. So I don't think we're measuring service in the right way anymore.
Defining what is their responsibility, because actually, when you speak to a really great travel consultant, they can be very creative around complex trips and bring huge value, but also reassurance to somebody as well. And that's what they should be doing.
When I look at service management, and I'm talking far broader here, I'm not just talking your large corporate that may have a different process, but just broadly speaking, getting data to a corporate in order for them to get a better understanding of what they're doing and take a more forward-looking view, it takes incredibly long. That needs to change.
I've heard from the buyer community and our customers is looking to other industries. So someone said, what does great service look like? Would anyone call out an example of, oh, my TMC, when I call them, it's XYZ? Or do they call out, my new bank card arrived and it was awesome. All I had to do was scan a QR code and this app popped up and I did this. And then a human called me and said, are you checking that you're okay? The examples don't come from inside the travel industry. They come from other industries.
I do think, though, it increased in the last 2 years because they needed the information and it was a safety net. The agency was a comfort blanket, for sure, of giving information, and I think it did change.
Yeah.
Now, it could quickly change back again, that's the
Whilst
challenge.
that information was sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it went down to right at the bottom of I need, my personal safety is at risk here, and this company are providing that information to me, so my joy of the service provision has gone up.
Yeah.
That's not there anymore.
Exactly.
And so therefore will it go back down again?